This proves that the Boston Bruins are all in. After Marco Sturm's intro press conference, we have so much news to cover on this Boston Bruins team about what is coming in this offseason, as well as what to expect here in this season. We're going to be breaking this all down and going over what this means for the Boston Bruins going forward. Very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking for all of your news just like this, Boston Bruins related, we have still so much more. This is just the top and the surface of this press conference. We're going to be having multiple videos on this. Be sure to hit the sub button. We have so much news coming for you. You'll get all your Bruins news as it happens. But let's just jump straight into this. No time to waste, because as I mentioned, we have multiple videos that we need to cover on this. I just watched and we just finished up here the Bruins press conference, going over Marco Sturm's intro, and I do have a few lists here of quotes and things that we need to discuss. I want to start off here with this one. Now, there's a lot of tidbits here we're going to be breaking down, or not breaking down necessarily, but talking about each one of them. I have a few screenshots here to kind of marry all these together, and let's get into it. So remember, this is a mix of a bunch of stuff from Don Sweeney, from Marco Sturm. You can kind of get an idea of who and what when it comes down to these individual quotes. So Marco Sturm kind of started this off saying, very happy to be here, and really immediately went over his plan for this Bruins team. Said he won't look too much ahead, but will look at the coaching staff, which we now know, we have an idea of, came out from Don Sweeney here later on in this press conference, and we will go over here in just a few minutes. But he wants a new assistant to have some power play experience, which is something that, of course, we've needed to see from this Boston Bruins team. After, I believe, being 24th last season in the power play, there was a big need for something to be revamped in this. And, of course, there's going to be another signing somewhere on the coaching staff, an assistant coach to join in and marry Marco Sturm together with what is going to be the same coaching staff going forward. And I want to pull up this from Scott McLaughlin. Sweeney confirmed that Jay Leach, Chris Kelly, and Bob Besnessa are all staying. They are in a process of hiring another assistant, and kind of going over as well, we discussed here on the NHL.com Bruins coaching staff. What's going to happen with these? We know now that these are officially staying. Bob Besnessa, Jay Leach, Chris Kelly remaining on this roster. And, of course, one more coach that will try and get put into this lineup is going to be the power play coach, or someone who can boost this power play into where they want to be when it comes down to being an elite team once again. But part of the solution, this is coming from Don Sweeney, may not necessarily be the opening roster. And I think that this is a big thing of what they needed and what they had the idea of bringing in Marco Sturm. They wanted a guy who was able to develop these younger players, and that kind of comes as well with our bottom one here. Discussed Minton and Poitras in the reason for Marco Sturm. They wanted some of these younger players, and they proved and kind of went over what Marco Sturm has done in the past and shown that guys like Brandt Clarke is an example they used. Quentin Byfield is an example they used. Making those guys into the stars they are now, which is something that I feel like I've been talking about here for weeks now, when Marco Sturm really kind of started to take away and pull away from the rest of the candidates here. It is a big idea that they want to get these younger players and younger talent on this team developed into future assets for this team, and kind of goes back to this. Part of the solution is not, or may not be necessarily, the opening day roster, as it may be the roster in the final game of the regular season, which could put us into a playoff spot. I think that's what Marco Sturm's whole goal of the Bruins tenure, at least, is going to be in his first year. He wants to get these players that are not at this point right now. He wants to get them there, and that's one big thing that the Bruins have tried to do over the past few seasons, but really have not been able to prove that they can do that under Joe Sacco or under Jim Montgomery. Now, of course, Jim Montgomery is more of a player's coach of who was there now rather than development, so you kind of understand the thought process behind this whole idea of it. And, as we kind of go here and look at the opening day roster, this is not going to be necessarily it right here, but when we go and take a look at the lineup right now, we know there's a few names that have not been on this lineup as of late that likely will, or at least be very close on getting into an opening day roster. And that kind of comes with Fabian Lysell, Matt Poitras, who is in opening day rosters, but, has moved up and down throughout the AHL and NHL over the past few seasons. Fraser Minton, recent acquisition from the Toronto Maple Leafs, did not play an NHL game just yet, but with Boston, I should say. But I do firmly believe will be a big part of this team. Murat Huzatinov, another one who, with the Minnesota Wild, played a handful of games, but hasn't really had that chance to develop. And this is another prime example for Marco Sturm, especially with some of these younger European players. He's been playing over there. He's played over there. He knows it. Coach of Germany. He has that experience with that style of hockey, which is not very similar to the NHL game or the North American game when you're at a younger age, like some of these younger players. So I think this is one thing that I really am excited to see, especially with Fabian Lysell, Georgi Merkulov, see how that progresses. And, this lineup here may be completely different by the end of this season, and they have discussed the possibilities and what they want to do at the free agency mark and the draft, of course, which we're going to jump into here now in a moment. But one thing as well that we kind of have to take a look at from the Marco Sturm press conference is another a little bit of a tidbit of where he wants to go, his mindset going into this first season as a head coach. Now, he said he loves the team already. There's not many changes that are going to be made significantly, but he wants to add up front. Playing good defense won't change. And those are the first three really big things that I think we all were really interested to see where this went out of this press conference, whether Marco Sturm would really address that right away. Wanted to see for a bit his coaching style, how it would impact it, because, if you give Joe Sacco and Marco Sturm the exact same team, you may get two completely different results, two different coaching styles. It is a big game apart from the game of hockey with the coaching style, and I'm very curious to see the main kind of differences that this team is going to touch on. So, Marco Sturm, said that this team, he likes it already. There wouldn't be too many changes he would want to make apart from a few fixes. Fixing up the power play is going to be one that this press conference, Don Sweeney, Marco Sturm have mentioned quite a bit, and I think that's pretty evident from what we had seen last year being as bad as we were on the power play. But the defense is one thing that he said probably won't change as much as some people think it will. Now, looking at this defense, we have to keep in mind last year as well how many injuries there really were. Elias Lindholm barely played the year. I think he played, I don't even want to guess how many games. I think it was 11 games or something. Charlie McAvoy missed just about half the season after the Four Nations face-off, was injured from that, and a few extra games here and there. Zadorov was a player who stepped up mightily at the end of the season, pairing him with Henri Jokiharju, who they went and acquired at the trade deadline. Still uncertain if he's going to be back yet. I would personally think it'd be a great idea. He's a very good, talented young player, and he paired very well with Zadorov, and we really saw Zadorov's true potential come out through that. Mason Lohrei is a young talent that I think Marco Sturm is going to develop, and of course, Andrew Peeke, who was kind of all around the lineup last year. We didn't really see him in one necessarily specific spot. He was a guy that came into this lineup, moved up and down wherever he needed with all these injuries, so he's a player that I would also kind of consider as a Swiss Army knife throughout his Bruins tenure thus far, and we are going to see likely a few more additions on the defense, but the fact that Marco Sturm says they're not straying away from how good this defense can be and how solid they are, that's a big thing that I think this Bruins team really should be excited going with into next season. Now, he also mentioned, of course, the special teams power play. We spoke about that on they're going to get another coach to work on that, bring him in. One idea could be Marc Savard. I know they said they weren't going to go out and get him after, a head coaching idea where he was still in the playoffs, but they didn't necessarily take away the fact that he runs a pretty good power play with Toronto, and he could potentially be an option here under Marc Savard's, under Marco Sturm's brand new Boston Bruins team. But finish this little bit of a video we have off here with the first few quotes, first few ideas, we should say, actually. Finding a way to have more offense is a big thing as well. They have some very talented players, and I'll pull this back up again, going over the offense. When we do take a look at here, this offense from this year's team, with, of course, a few changes to that players who were not up here, but going from last year, the offense was really good. On paper, this team, this lineup, may not put up as many goals as you think, but they're a very solid group of offensive players, and putting them into a list, they should generate more offense. I think Marco Sturm wants to even increase that production more and more, and whether that means getting Morgan Geekie another big contract, keeping on the first line with David Pastrnak, getting another center to join them. It's a lot of uncertainty thus far, and we're going to find out more and more as the days and weeks go on here, with more Marco Sturm quotes going to be coming out sooner rather than later. I think that this team is in a pretty good spot going forward to find out where they want to generate more offense and how they're going to do that, whether it is in-house or whether it's going to be the draft, free agency, or a trade somewhere else here in this offseason. But I want to pull up as well one more final thing here is the cap space before we head back onto our final quote. The Bruins have a lot of room to be able to do what they want. And of course, there's going to be a few signings. You can kind of allocate probably 6 to 8 million. I would hope more towards 6 for Morgan Geekie here in this cap space, leaving it with around 20 million. And Marc Savard and, Marco Sturm and Don Sweeney are going to be talking about, and this is what they said at the end of the press conference here, talking about going forward, what they want to do with the rest of that money, talk about where they're going to talent allocate it, what kind of players they want to get. I think it's a matter of time that we won't know right now, but when we start to see Marco Sturm get more in tune with this team, meet some more of the players, see them, watch them play a bit more, we're going to get a bit of a better idea there. But one final quote here, one final idea that was said at the end of this press conference was, he got a system already in his head. And now this is one thing that is very exciting to see, that Marco Sturm's already knowing and kind of has an idea of what he wants to do. And this is something that I think we haven't seen just yet from many Bruins coaches. I feel like Joe Sacco was kind of thrown in there, thrown under the bus, didn't really have the idea in his head of, what am I going to do with this team right now? But the fact that Marco Sturm already has that, and, more stuff going to be coming out. I'm going to have more videos on this, but what Don Sweeney has said about Marco Sturm is that more and more enthusiasm is being brought out through the interview process after he was going through multiple steps of it, and that's a big part of what led him to this point and where he is now. So the fact that he already has a plan, already has an idea, is something that a lot of Bruins fans should be very excited about, knowing that the confidence is already there from Marco Sturm. He believes in this team, even as it is, without the moves that are going to be made. So let me know what you think about this. I feel like this was a bit of a yappy video, but, there's a lot of stuff coming up from this. I have a big list on my computer here when watching the press conference, typing it down. We got a bunch more tweets coming out that a lot of these people who were at the press conference were breaking down. So be sure to stick around if you want all your Bruins news. We have a lot of stuff coming about this press conference, more stuff about Marco Sturm coming, and I'm going to have it all right here for you guys if you are looking for your Bruins news. So be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already, and you're at this point in the video, you're obviously looking for it. But, that's all I got in this video. If you enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. You guys are the best, but I'm signing out. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.